This episode is brought to you by our friends at Brooks Blooms, your all-in-one landscaping solution.
Brooks Bloom's three-step landscaping experience offers a seamless journey from design to construction and ongoing care, ensuring your outdoor space thrives year-round.
Visit brooksblooms.com today to embark on your landscaping journey, where every step is a step towards a vibrant and beautiful outdoor entertaining space.
G'day everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Ads and Dunks podcast. As always, joining me on the line is my good mate, Adzi Trelaw. It's been a tough week, mate, but let us know how you're feeling at the moment.
Yeah, no, it has been. I was, it's the only thing I've been getting asked recently, and this was prior to, obviously, the setback. So now that's all I'm getting asked. But, yeah, it's been a challenging last couple of days. Obviously, another setback, calf strain. So, it is what it is. I can't really, can't really do anything about it. I've just got to accept it. Liaise with the medical team a little bit over the next couple of days and just go from there. Really, I mean, it obviously did it yesterday, so it's very raw. And you haven't really done any soft tissues, but the first couple of days you kind of just got to let it rest. You can't really do anything about it. So kind of what I've been doing, just laying low.
It must be hard, mate. Like I, as you said, I haven't had many soft tissues. I've had my fair share of impact injuries with shoulders and ankles and whatnot, but to have it repetitive and sort of be coming back and then doing it again, it must be frustrating, like big time for you.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, the frustrating thing is, like, I'm not doing anything different. That's the thing. And if anything, I've probably really, really cut down on all the extra stuff that I used to do. And that's just purely because of me listening to my body and, wanting to make sure I feel good week in, week out. And, I invest so much time into my recovery. Like, I know you know how much, but I invest so much. My half my days consisted of doing things that make myself feel good. And, that's probably where the frustration is, because I'm not really doing that much. I'm basically just doing the training that I need to do through the footy club. And the repeats is probably the most disheartening thing, because, when you think you're over something and then you have a really good block, like I had a really good 8-9 weeks really of training and building, and had a really couple solid sessions last week. So to have been so close to getting clear to play, which I know I was really close, to now have a setback, it's obviously very disappointing. And it's very disheartening. The hardest thing is knowing that I can't be out there helping the boys. Like, that's, the reason why I'm here. It's the reason why I'm playing. I'm not here to not play. I'm here to help as in any way that I can. And I like to think that I could certainly help and contribute and help us win games of footy. And when you sit there on Friday night and you watch, a ripping game of footy, against an unreal side in Collingwood, you can't help but think, I wish I was out there, because I feel like I might have been able to have an impact. So, it's hard. It is very hard I wouldn't lie to you by saying that last couple of days has been really shit. It's if it wasn't for the fact that I love doing the podcast and I love seeing your face and chatting to Brado, I was every chance to can this and have a couple of days off, but obviously can't. So we just move on.
You can, mate. If you don't want to do it one week, I'm sure the fans would be all supportive of that. But I mean, it is the first time that you've probably spoken since doing it, and I guess people would probably want to know how did it actually happen? Like, were you just training routinely, doing a normal drill, and it just grabs, or what's the feeling like when it happens? Like, do you know straight away?
When you've done so many soft tissues, you definitely know. And it was just what you said. Basically, I was just training, and then I just didn't feel right. That's when I say I didn't feel right. There's just awareness in the calf, and there's so many parts to the calf. But anything that involves your calf, especially someone who has done his calf a few times, there's just awareness. And I just had it, and then obviously had to go get the precautionary scan, hoping there wasn't anything, but there obviously was. So that's kind of how it worked out. It was just the normal main /tech Monday sesh for us. Which would have been nice to pass because I would have obviously main trained tomorrow, and then would have been right in line to hopefully had played this week or next week.
Crazy how it just happened so randomly, but I just wanted to get that out the way first, mate, because I know everyone will be asking about it, and I know you want to get it off your chest. So how's everything else going outside of your body and your calf? Like, how's the family? Georgie's birthday on Sunday. What have you been up to?
Yeah, it was otherwise been great. Family's great. Georgie's great. She had her birthday, as I said. It was great having my brother-in-law was down. So Kim's brother and his partner Carissa were down. They actually came to the game on the Friday. They hadn't ever been to Carissa hadn't been to a game, and the plan was to obviously watch me play. It had been booked in advance for a while, so obviously let them down in that regard. But I was able to take them through the facility, which they'd never seen an elite facility, and our facility is right up there as one of the best. So was able to take them through that, and they loved that. I know they really enjoyed being able to see just how a footy club runs and the facility that we have at use. And I think they kind of underestimated a little bit, the amount of work that goes into playing, I guess. And you take that for granted in a way, because being an athlete, and this as well, the general person has every right to think, they probably just go in and train and that's it. Like, they don't really understand there's so much that goes into playing footy. And when I was showing them everything and showing them the recovery centre and talking them through my day and the amount of meetings that we have and whatnot, they were genuinely mind blown. I even like showing them, like, going into the area where you can just, watch your vision from the game and watch opposition and go on sports code and whatnot. They couldn't believe that. Like, that was mind blowing to them that that's actually what we do. And I was like, we don't just rock up on the Saturday and just, have a guess who we're playing against and run out there and play. So, that was pretty cool to take him through. But yeah, the week was good. Otherwise, we had the weekend off. Obviously, the Friday night game was an amazing day for the footy club and such a celebration for the footy club. And, it was really cool to see that and be there and see all the past players. And yeah, just the celebration, as I said, was very special and something that a lot of, diehard Footscray and Western Bulldogs fans are so grateful for. Obviously, the result didn't go our way, which is disappointing. But yeah, it was a special day for the club. But outside of that, mate, no, not much. I watched a really cool doco yesterday on Winx. Actually, it was on Amazon Prime. I think it was Amazon Prime. I don't know if you've seen that doco, but mate, it is unreal. Really, really good doco. So it's just basically on Winx, and it tracks obviously her record-breaking 33-run undefeated. Well, she obviously lost early, but 33 wins in a row. So, that was probably the highlight of the weekend.
That's cool. That was going to be my next question. Did you watch the big race on Saturday, the Golden Slipper?
I sure did, mate. It was actually a really good day for racing. There was some quality horses getting around, and J-Mac had an absolute ripping day. I mean, if you're on J-Mac most of the day, you would have been pretty pumped. Although Fangirl just lost on the nose, and I'm a huge Fangirl fan. So, but all the races, quality racing. I love the Autumn Carnival. There's another huge day this Saturday, which I cannot wait to be all over, which is good.
Speaking of horses, one of our horses that we've got together, Lordship, unfortunately has done a tendon, so we think that that's going to be out for a long period of time. I was shattered when I got that news, I must say. Like, I was so disappointed.
Taken after one of its owners, how good on the long-term injury list. But no, I was shattered too, because we'd been counting down for a while, and we've got obviously a staying horse who really likes a wet deck, and we'd been chasing the wet deck for a while, and we finally got one for the weekend. It was going to be in Randwick, and then the news of obviously the horses hurt its tendon. So hopefully he comes back bigger and better. Have to just wait another 9 months.
Fingers crossed, mate. We'll see how we go. But other than that, my week was pretty good, pretty low key. We played Sunday, so it was a bit of a different build up for us. Saturday I spent a lot of the day watching the horse races and our VFL team who played Saturday as well. So that was a good result for us in the VFL. And other than that, Tipper and I we got back to our restaurant of the week thing that you and Kim have been doing. And mate, went to a place Portside, which is like north of the river, called Fosh, which, mate, when you come here, I will take you there. It's a cracking joint. Like, you know, when you go to a place and you look at the menu and you're like, I can't order all of this food, but I really want to. That's when you know that it's quality, I reckon, because you want to go back there and you will go back there. So I reckon that's a good sign, but it was delicious.
What cuisine did you say it was?
It was like seafood, more seafood.
Okay. Yeah. Well, there's another one on the list that you can take me to, and I can throw it down on the rankings, which will be exciting. I really like how I would like it. Can you do me a favor, and every restaurant you go to, do the same thing, rank it out of 20. So you and Tipper give 10 each.
Okay. All right.
Starting from obviously you do it every week basically. So that's what is it? 52 weeks a year. So you got 52 restaurants. So can't wait.
52 restaurants.
You gotta rank them. So maybe one day we can do a spin-off Ads and Dunks restaurant review show or something like that, which would be pretty cool because you've been to your very, very good fair share of restaurants, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. I've been to a lot. I love my food, so I love getting out there. I'm actually going to Shane D'Elia. He's opening a restaurant this week called Layla in Brisbane. So it's his first restaurant in Brizzy, and I was talking to him a couple of weeks ago, and he said, come down. So I'm going to go to the opening night on Thursday night, I think it is. So that'll be cool. That's another restaurant that we can try out, mate.
That will be cool, right up your alley. Actually, I wanted to say I'm also doing another ranking, which I would love to know. Well, you're not a TV show man, but I know you watch shows, don't you? You do.
Yeah.
I'm someone who's never really watched TV shows, and I've basically done the same thing. You know how New Year's resolutions, it wasn't really a resolution, but a lot of people resolutions when it comes to like electronics and whatnot, theirs is to steer clear of it. Mine is to watch as many TV shows as possible because I've never actually watched TV shows. The ones I remember watching are like Prison Break, Lost when I was young, like the ones that used to be on Channel 7. But all the like Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, The Sopranos, all the really good rated ones I've never watched. Anyway, fast forward 3 months into the year, I've watched the whole series of Breaking Bad. I've watched the whole series of Mr. In Between, which is this Australian drama, which is unreal. I've watched almost the whole series of True Detective, which is another really good series. And I'm almost 4 seasons into The Sopranos, which is one of the great TV shows of all time. So I'm doing a ranking out of 10 for that as well. So whilst you're at it, any TV show you watch, mate, can you please give us a ranking out of 10?
Mate, so you're telling me that you haven't watched Game of Thrones?
I haven't watched Game of Thrones. No, I've watched. Sorry,
what?
I've watched the first half of the first season, and for some reason, I just stopped watching it.
Oh, bro, you got to watch that.
Well, I just want to ask. I've got a couple mates, and Anthony Scott is one of those at the footy club who is he's a guru when it comes to TV shows. So is Scotty, actually, our physio. They say like Game of Thrones is right up there, one of the best shows of all time. But the last season lets them down. Is that true?
Yeah, the last season, yeah, I would say that. But the rest before that, mate, unbelievable. Unbelievable show. All
right, well, I'll trust you on that after I finish The Sopranos because I'm watching The Sopranos at the moment. As I said, I'm smashing through it. I'll watch the Game of Thrones for you. But I wanted to mention it because I like because I've had a couple of questions on, people have been asking me since I've been injured, what have I been doing? Like, couple of DMs, and I was really thinking about it. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll just tell it on the podcast. So that's basically what I've been doing, watching heaps of TV shows. So our listeners out there, can you please give me some suggestions or send through some stuff that you think I should be watching? Because as I said, I smashed through Breaking Bad, Missed in Between, True Detective. I've got the rankings here as I'm naming them. Adolescence, actually, that's a new one on Netflix for 4 episodes. So any TV shows you watch, mates, send them through and rank them for me.
White Lotus, have you watched that?
I've seen the preview, and it was a suggestion from Scotty as well.
Okay, yeah, that's good. I'm watching that. We nearly finished that, actually. Nearly up to date.
Good.
So that's a good one.
What's your current ranking out of 10 right now?
I'd probably give it 7.5, 8.
Well, I can't wait to hear. Actually, cannot wait to hear what Brado thinks of TV shows at the very end, because I know he would be someone who loves his TV shows. And speaking of Brado and special guest, we've actually got a special guest joining us at the end of the episode. So make sure you stay tuned and listen through, because it's going to be really exciting. And that's something we plan to do a little bit this year, which will be really cool, because we haven't had many guests on our body for a while, have we?
No, we haven't. We used to do it like when we first started out, but this is our first official guest, as we've been doing it online or on Zoom or whatever you call it. So yeah, can't wait to get him on. We'll give a little hint before he comes on, but yeah, it's going to be exciting. Speaking of my week too, actually, I got to say, I finished my coaching last week, Adzi. So it might sound weird to you, but up here they play school footy in the summertime or autumn time. And we got rained out a couple of weeks, as I mentioned last week. So technically there wasn't a premiership game, but on aggregate, we won the premiership. So we had our best and fairest count last night. There's 7 games. That's all it is. So you just got to win as many games as possible and by however much you can. And we ended up technically winning the premiership. And we had our best and fairest yesterday at school. So Ash Prindable, you probably won't know that name, but you might in the future. He won it. So congrats to him. And yeah, thanks to Laurie's for having me on for the first year of my coaching career, mate. It was great.
Well, that's really cool. So that's actually really cool. We presented with you with the Premiership Cup and stuff?
Nah, they didn't have it there. But I think, so what happens now is like, it's really strange the way they do it. So now you win that competition, and then in like 3 months, they start training together again, and they play Schools Cup. So it's like Q Cup. So it's like a Queensland whole state thing. And then pretty much all the best schools from their competitions come in and play against each other. So we play like Palm Beach apparently is the best team in the history of the game. And they're the team to knock off. So that's who we hopefully will be playing against. I think we go straight through to the semi or something, and we play in the grand final if we win that. And then it'll probably be, Palm Beach or one of those other schools. So that'll be exciting later in the year.
That's really cool. So speaking of the BNF voting, I had a quick little think about it when you were talking. I could imagine that it'll be something like a key defender or like a really defensive orientated player who would have gotten a lot of the votes, seeing as though you're the coach.
To be fair, a midfielder won it, but he was very good, mate. Like this kid, Ash Brindable, remember his name. I think there's a lot of boys in our group, Hodgie's son, Cooper, Ethan Duke. There's a lot of guys that are playing really good footy for us. But Ash Prindable not many people have talked about him up here so far, and I think he's going to be a star in the future. And a lot of things are going his way. So he had a great season, and very fortunate.
What's the pathway for these? Oh, so they go now and play local footy now. And then
yes, so they'll go local
drafted.
team, and then hopefully because they're sort of 16, 17, 18-year-old kids that will go to their local clubs, hopefully play senior footy this year, and then at the end of the year come back to school and play that Q Cup, and then potentially get drafted after that. But as they're going through that school and local process, the academy, like the Brisbane Lions Academy or the Gold Coast Academy, can scout them and invite them into tryouts and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of different pathways for them, which is great because Queensland footy is still growing, and there's a lot of kids up here that love AFL footy now. So to be able to have more and more people playing is so good for our game.
Yeah, that is really cool. That's unreal. It must give you a taste to want to keep coaching, because now you get to wait a whole nother year because obviously the summertime season, as you said. But that's really cool. I'm glad you had a successful year. That's 2 premierships in 6 months now. So well done. Well done.
Thanks, mate.
That's
Appreciate
good. We may as well get into the footy. It's taken us, 20, 25 minutes to actually talk about the footy, which is great because that's not what our life is just only about. It was it was a couple of crazy results on the weekend. I mean, I think the North Melbourne game is one that sticks out for me. There's many other games, but the North Melbourne game obviously showcased, how exciting of a list that they have. I really feel like I know it's the sample size is only 2 games, but I feel like the experienced players that they brought in has clearly helped them a lot. And I mentioned Caleb Daniels, obviously the big one. Luke Parker had a great game. Jack Darling, 300 game. Well done to Jack Darling. What an incredible career he's had. But even some of their young guys, like, just so exciting for a North Melbourne fan.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, mate. I think the best thing from a North Melbourne perspective too, I was just taking a look before and on the day when they were playing, because they played after us, was the even contribution that they're getting from all of their players. Like, no one really stands out statistically. And then you go through and you look, like, everyone's had a really good game. So that's what I think the best teams do really well, or have, is a lot of even contribution week to week. And that's what North Melbourne have got now. Like, they've got in guys, even you look at Jacob Constanti.
Yes.
Like, he's come from Sydney and, mate, playing that role perfectly for North Melbourne. So, I think they've done really well from a trade perspective, and they're going to be a hard team to beat this year, which is awesome for the game.
I agree. And I seen this thing the other day, the excitement around the fact that they've now, I feel like, got enough games into LDU, who's a superstar. Like, he's one of the best midfielders in the competition, easily. Harry Sheasel is another one. And then there's someone, there's a player here who does not get mentioned in the same breath of those two, but has always had that ability. And I feel like he's now, again, 2 games is such a small sample size, but he's played a great 2 games, is Tom Powell, who is a very, very underrated midfielder who really complements LDU, Sheasel, even Jai Simpkin when he goes in there, just really complements them and looks to me to have the class and, I guess, the composure and I don't know, he's just such a really nice football player to watch. Good inside, good outside. And it's just really flourishing, and it's great to see. Like, I'm someone who, being in the system long enough now, and you are too, clearly, I like seeing teams who have struggled, like, do well and start to do well and see a bit of the light at the end of the tunnel. Because, I could only imagine, well, when I was young, when I was a kid, I went for, obviously, Carlton, and we were a great side for many, many years. But from the years I started following football, which was basically 2002 till I got drafted, which was 2010. 2002 onwards, we just weren't any good. And it used to break my heart, mate. I used to cry my eyes out after every game. I'll never forget our last game at Icon Park, or Optus Stadium, it was called. Optus Oval, it was called at the time. Carlton versus Melbourne, and Anthony Koutafiti is my favourite player, held the ball up after the game. We lost by like 24 points. And I just remember crying my eyes out. But that was me every week, because I just loved Carlton. So, I could only just imagine the North fans must be really excited about what they say. And I'd almost throw St Kilda into that same boat, because, they obviously struggled last week. But I'm very optimistic on them. Like, I think their footy is really good, and particularly when they play on a fast deck. So, like Marvel Stadium, they're a very, very good side.
I watched that game because we play the Cats this week, and I was impressed by the Saints, the way that they played their style against a formidable Cats team, really. Like, the only outs they had were, which they lost Stewart on the night, but Baz was probably the only other one out of their team that wasn't out there. So, pretty impressive from a St Kilda point of view. And it was similar, I guess, to our game, like the way that West Coast came out after being smashed in the media the week before, come up against Gold Coast and didn't play the way they wanted to. And they came out, mate, with a full head of steam. So that's the exciting thing, I think, about the competition this year, is that on any given day, and we always say it, like over the last couple of years especially, like, any team can win. So from a supportive point of view, like, you're excited. You go to a game, you're like, shit, yeah, like, very optimistic about what can happen.
Yeah, mate. And then there's your boys, the ones you're all over, the Adelaide Crows, who just put up 161 points and look absolutely unstoppable right now.
Yeah, they're going pretty well. The only thing I would say is, like, Essendon still scored 100. So, I mean, I love the way Adelaide are playing at the moment, and watching him is quite scary. But at the same time, I guess they're probably going to be, like, I know Murray Davis really well, and he's just gone there as a coach this year, and I'm sure he'll be talking to them about their defensive side, because it's all well and good to be putting up 161 points, but you want to be able to keep the opposition to as less a score as you can. So I'm sure they're talking about that. But yeah, mate, I'm all aboard the train of the Crows. You know that.
I do know that, and Brado knows that, and they're absolutely flying at the moment. What about your game? I know you just mentioned it, but geez Louise, West Coast came out with like, I was kind of, I was actually doing some cleaning, actually, to be honest, and it was just on in the background, but I was watching. And when they kept kicking goals early, I had to stop and I walked over and I was just watching. I was like, what is going on? Like, West Coast are playing out of their skin. A pretty hard fought game for you boys, but another good, as you said, you can't take anyone for granted. And the fact that you guys were able to claw your way back, and it looked really, really hot out there. Boys were cramping left, right, and center. And I think, I think it really helped that. And obviously, unfortunate for the Eagles, but I think their ruckman actually was cramping, and then their backup ruckman started cramping. So that obviously didn't help them, but it was a hard-fought game.
Similar to the week before for us, like so hot. Like the conditions were just insane. To be playing, it was a midday game in Brisbane, and it rained that morning. So you can imagine what the humidity's like. Like you've been up here a fair bit throughout the summertime. Like it was hot, like very, very hot. So if you're not playing or not living in Queensland, you're not used to it at all. And we even had guys ourselves cramping. So it was, I think you look at it and you look at the start of the game and we fully expected them to come out with the heat that they brought, but they were just, mate, they were too good. We were probably making a few mistakes by hand and foot, but they just played a brand of footy that took it right up to us. And unfortunately, we lost the contest a little bit. There were little things in our game that weren't really going our way, but to be able to manage that after quarter time, and I guess, if you look at it from quarter time onwards, we won by about 50 points. So if we didn't have that rough start, then we would have been able to weather the storm a little bit better, and it might have looked a bit different for us. But as you said, 4 points, mate, you take that early in the season and there's still plenty of things to work on, which is a positive.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Anything else that caught your eye? I imagine they were probably going to bring a couple of things up from the Friday night game, our boys against Maggies.
Yeah, no, I was going to talk about your game because we were texting on the night. I didn't see the first 3 quarters, I must admit, but because Tipper and I were out at Fosh for dinner. But I watched the last quarter when I got home. I was checking the scores as I was out to dinner, and I was like, geez, this must be a cracking game of footy. But to see some of the it'd be so hard to umpire the game of footy. But there's so many big decisions late that potentially could have shaped the game and made it the way that it was. But I just think overall, like it was a cracking game of football. So it's great to have that, especially as, Footscray on the weekend, to have so many guys out, but to take it up to one of the arguably better teams in the competition this year must be very positive for you guys.
Oh, absolutely, mate. And you're right. It was a great game of footy. It was a hard one to watch because I just was jumping out of my seat. But, it certainly was. And I mean, you mentioned the umpires, but the reality is, I mean, going back and watching and reviewing it, like a lot of the free kicks were there. Like that's just the reality. Like the free kicks that were obviously given to them, a large chunk of them were there, like around the neck or holding the man. And that's just more on us. It's more on us being better at, our craft and whatnot. So there's no argument there or no blame there. But the game, a cracking game. I mean, it could have gone either way. I feel like one of the great, I guess, stories that is unfolding already is people are starting to realise how good of a player Sam Darcy's going to be. He's really flourishing in front of our eyes. He's going to be a nightmare to defend for any defender going forward. Joel Fraser is another one for us who is playing majority of his time in the middle, as people have seen with obviously myself and Bont not playing at the moment. I feel like he's really taken that with both hands, and his class is just coming. He's coming to the floor, and a lot of people are calling him a young Marcus Bontempelli, which is an almighty comparison. But I can see it. I can see the similarities. But I mean, at the end of the day, we want to win, and extremely disappointed we didn't win. But pleased with a lot of what we've seen. Albeit Collingwood probably could have put us away a little bit earlier in that last. They missed a couple easy set shots on goal, but it's still a great momentum building game going forward. We've got a ripper game this week. We're obviously playing against Carlton, who, again, their backs are really against the wall, and fully expecting a similar kind of contest to the way the Maggies brought it against us. But it was a really cool game to be at. I just wish we'd won the game, obviously.
I want to stick up for the umpires too, because we always stick up for him on here, and obviously know what it's like out there. But it would be so hard, mate, to somehow manage like the crowd, the game, like it's close, like you don't want to make a wrong call, and it just be they can't like you can't win. I don't think either way you're gonna have 40,000 Bulldog supporters hating you, or you're gonna have probably 100,000 Collingwood supporters hating you. So it's like,
and a lot of that time the supporters hang on to that, and it'll be with them for the week. They'll just be obviously, talking about how, the umpires really hurt us. But again, as I said to you, mate, like go back and actually watch the game. A lot of the free kicks were there. Like there's probably free kicks that could have been paid, but that's like every game. That's like every single game where there's a missed, high tackle or a missed whatever it may be. But a lot of the free kicks were there. I just think maybe a couple of the later ones, like a couple of deliberate out of the bounds, it just has to be kind of consistent. That's probably where, as players, our frustration is, and you and I have spoken about that. That's where the frustration is. If there's a level that's been set, that's just what you expect that it's going to be every time. So when it's not like that, that's obviously the most frustrating thing. It's like, oh, well, friggin', and again, going inside into the mind of a player, I bet you every time you give away a free kick or your team gives away a controversial free kick, you'll always remember it. You'll always remember when it was, when it happened, what quarter it was, because if it then happens later on and doesn't get called, you're standing there like, oh, I remember that happened in the second quarter, 10 minutes in the game. Like, are you kidding? So that's probably the only bit where you've just got to hopefully, the consistency is obviously always there. But again, with you, mate, like a lot of the free kicks were there, and that's just the reality for it. And it wasn't the reason why we lost the game of footy.
The Digger-Dale deliberate out of bounds was a tough call, but I mean, as a player, you just cop it on the chin, deal with it, and move on to the next thing. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we clearly understand how hard it would be.
Yeah, mate. Anything else from the round, or are we getting into our tips for this week?
Yeah, so I just want to before we move on, get your opinion on Harley Reid and how you feel for a person like him, like the scrutiny that he goes through. He can't do anything without someone saying something. Like, how do you feel for someone like that?
I certainly have a lot of empathy for him. I really do, because I could only imagine like what he thinks and how frustrating it must be for him that everything he does is scrutinized for someone who's so young and has an abundance of talent. I feel like a lot of it's unfair. Like, I really do. A lot of it's unfair. I mean, he's playing like the way I think about it is I feel like Nick Dacos cops it the same way, but his is largely like he has a lot of negative criticism, which is obviously unfair, but his is largely positive because his performance speaks for him, and he's playing in a very good side, and he has for the last 3 years. The challenging thing for obviously Harley Reid is he's playing in a team that, historically the last couple of years hasn't gone that well. So he's going to get criticised for it, and he's going to be a large part of that. And that's just unfair in my opinion, because he can't really back it up, because no one individual is more important than the team, or no one individual majority of the time is going to get your team over the line. That just doesn't happen. So, I feel for him. I mean, he does a couple of things where it's, oh, come on, mate, you probably shouldn't do that. But he's a kid. Like, he's a kid at the end of the day, and he cops the amount of criticism that he cops. Like, he's clearly someone who's very jovial. He's very confident. He's very happy. It looks like he genuinely looks like he's having a blast out there. He's having fun. He loves the competitive side. He loves the bash and crash. He just wears his emotions on his sleeve, which is what you love. And Jason Horne-Francis gets a bit of that because he's kind of the same. So, yeah, I have a lot of empathy for him because I feel that he cops a lot of unfair criticism.
No, I'm with you. I think you just said it then. Like, he's a kid. He's 19 years old. If you think of any 19-year-old person in the world right now, like, they're exactly the same. So I just feel like you got to let him bring his character and play the way that he plays. And I'm sure behind the scenes at the club, they're talking to him about little things in his game that they want him to get better at. But at the same time, they just want him to be him, and that's what they accept. So, I feel really sorry for him the way that he cops it. All right, now time to move on to this week. Tips, mate. How'd you go last week? We'll get Brado on at the end to tell us, but I think you might have got a good one, didn't you?
I don't know, because I think I went like Richmond over Port. I actually think I went Sydney over Freo, to be honest.
Yeah,
I don't think any of us.
I did.
Yep. I don't think any of us chose North. But anyway, we'll find out at the end.
We'll go on to this week then.
Get into it, mate, for us.
All right. Well, we've got Essendon versus Port Adelaide on Thursday night to kick us off. Who are you going for there?
Oh, well, mate, there's a lot of heat coming for Essendon at the moment. And, yep, you know what teams do after they cop it. I feel like they're bound to bounce back. Albeit Port Adelaide did play very well. Connor Rosie's flying the first 2 rounds. I'm going to tip Essendon. I'll tip the upset.
All right, I'll tip against you and take Port because I just think Port are they found their mojo this week and they tend to play Marvel quite well. Like the last time I reckon I watched them. So play there that it is. So I'll take them. Friday night, Carlton versus the Doggies, your Doggies at Marvel Stadium.
Oh, well, obviously I'm going us, but I'm excited about this one. I feel like it's going to be a good game. Carlton are a very good contested ball side. They're a very good contest side. So, they've actually brought that the last 2 weeks as well, although there's been, again, a lot of heat for them as well, which I think they've still played. Like, obviously they lost to Richmond last week, but they played great 2 weeks ago, but they played great last week. Didn't win, but, yeah, they're always heated battles. It's going to be a really good contest. I'm really looking forward to this. So, I'm excited. I think the boys, the boys are really excited that it's another Friday night game for us. We've had some good time slots to start the season, so really keen.
Yeah, it's going to be a good game. And look out for Matty Kennedy against his old mob. I think he's going to be in for a big one because he'll want to prove them really wrong. So I think the Dogs will win that one too.
So do I, mate.
All right, Saturday afternoon, 12:20 my time, 1:20 your time. Suns v Melbourne at the MCG.
This is going to be a great game. Great game. Gold Coast obviously had the bye, so yeah, far out. Again, Melbourne under quite a bit of pressure too. So, it's a hard one. Who am I going to tip? Man, I tipped against Gold Coast round 1 and they absolutely smashed the Eagles. So it was the Eagles, right? Yeah. So, you know what? I'm going to go to the Gold Coast. I'm just going to go from what they've displayed so far. It's been unreal.
Well, I'm going to go against you and go the D's. I think they'll bounce back and have a big week. Next game is St Kilda versus Richmond at Marvel Stadium.
I'm going to go the Saints again, but I'm very intrigued. I am intrigued to see this because, I think Richmond will play Marvel well. I reckon it'll be a close game. I'm excited for this game. I love seeing Saints and Richmond play at Marvel. They always put up a cracker. I'm going the Saints though.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's going to be a good game, and a lot of the Tigers boys, young players, they've been playing at Marvel a little bit throughout their junior careers, and they'll be keen as to get under the roof, I reckon. I don't want to go against you again, so I'll go the Saints, but I do think that Richmond are a massive chance in this game.
I do too, mate. It's going to be a ripper. Hawthorn
Giants down at UTAS Stadium in Launceston.
Oh, this is one of the games of the round. Mate, it's almost like they play a very similar brand of footy. Like Hawthorn maintain the ball a little bit more than the Giants. Like they obviously like to kick mark and move the ball around. That's probably where the difference is. But in terms of their when they get the ball in motion, they're actually very similar, which I'm excited for. It's a good game. Far out. I'm big on the Giants this year, so I'm going to go to the Giants. I'm big on the Giants.
I'll tip with you. I think the Giants might beat the Hawks down there. I don't know. The Hawks, the way they play their footy at the moment's incredible. But then you look at the Giants and you say, well, their skills are just on another level, the Giants. And I feel like they'll just control the footy. You know, they'll pick their way through the Hawks, although the Hawks will probably do the same to them. But yeah, I'll tip the Giants as well.
Yeah, me too, mate.
Sunday, Adelaide versus North. Who you got there?
I'm going to say Adelaide, but again, another game I'm excited about. I'm going to say Adelaide because I just think they're too hard to tip against at the moment, especially at home. But yeah, this will be good. This is going to be a real good test for North. Great test to see, how they stack up against obviously one of the clear early favourites. So I'll go Adelaide.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's going to be interesting to see how they back up after last week's performance. Similar to the next game as well, West Coast Eagles versus Freo. I think in this one, like if West Coast can play the way that they did early against us for 4 quarters against Freo, mate, they are every chance to knock them off.
I'm going to tip West Coast. I'm with you. And for extra brownie points, 5 extra points as we do every year, that's the derby over there. So there's the best on ground.
Derby or Derby?
I say derby. What do you say?
Yeah, Derby.
Yep. So give us your best on. So I think the Eagles will win. So I'm going to say, who's been? Liam Baker was good on the weekend. Jeez, he was good against you boys. I'm going to say.
I'm going to go with Harley Reid.
I thought you would.
Best on ground.
Jeez, actually, no Jake Waterman. That's a big out. You know what? I'm changing my tip. I'm going to Freo. So make sure you write that down, please, Brado. My best on ground is going to be. I'm going to go. Oh, who am I going to go? I don't want to say one of the mids. It'll be one of the mids. I'll presume it'll be one of the mids. You know what? I'll go Jordan Clark, halfback.
Like it. All right, we'll move on to our game, my game, on Saturday night against the Cats, which would be a massive one. It's obviously been rescheduled. It was meant to be a couple of weeks ago, so looking forward to finally playing against them. We prepared for them a few weeks ago, prepared for them now, so looking forward to it. It's going to be a cracking game. I feel like it potentially might rain a bit up here, so the contest is going to be very important early, and they're going to be out to redeem themselves from last week, I'm sure. So, yeah, looking forward to this contest and can't wait to get stuck in.
Yeah, Geelong have played the Gabba pretty well, like reasonably well the last few years. I know they got you there last year. And you guys have had some ripping games against them the last few times, actually, the prelim as well last year. You must be have you looked into any of those games? Have you looked in a bit of vision to see, where you guys can hopefully beat them?
Yeah, well, last year, as I mentioned, they beat us up, or as you mentioned, they beat us up here in the pouring rain. It was like monsoon type rain, and it potentially could be that again on Saturday night. So we've sort of brought out that vision a little bit because we didn't really adapt to the conditions as well as what they did last time we played them up here. So, yeah, those little things in terms of, balance between kicking and handballing or, shoulders out. Are we looking for a shorter option or a longer option? Like those little decisions that you make as a player are things that come into it, and probably we didn't do so well last time up here against them.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting, and I hope Baz plays because he's a big out. He was a big out for him on the weekend, and he's going to clearly provide that run, and might see you match up on him a little bit, which would be pretty cool. But it's going to be a ripping game.
I might rip his headband off, mate.
Oh, hopefully he's listening on the podcast so he can see. But I wish you all the best, mate. Hopefully you get another win.
Yeah, thanks, mate. It's going to be good. Looking forward to it.
Yep. We got to do our MVP votes, mate. We still haven't come up with a name for
before.
It. True. Still have not come up with a name. Yes. Get our fans to send in some suggestions. But give us your 3, 2, 1.
My 3, 2, 1 from last week is I'm going to give one vote to Jack McRae, our old teammate. I just thought he played really well, really contested brand on the weekend for the Saints and did a lot right against the Cats. And, yeah, I feel like he played a massive game for them and led them from the front. So he's my 1 vote. 2 votes to Ben Keys, mate, one of the hardest working half forwards in the game. And he got rewarded on the weekend with 4 goals and I don't know how many touches or whatever he had, but he just has that offensive impact and defensive because he does a lot of gut running the other way. And 3 votes for me was Tom Liberatore. I just thought, I didn't see the whole game, but the way that he carried himself, even at the end when the chips were down and he could have easily packed up and gone, kicked that beautiful goal out, from nothing really. I thought he was really good. So they're my 3.
He was incredible. He actually was. He started the season off on fire. He's an honourable mention for me. I don't want people thinking I'm just voting for my teammates because I would every bloody week if I could. And again, I was going to do Ben Keys as well, but I watched a bit of this game and I agree with you. He was incredible, but I think his captain, Jordan Dawson, he's probably the informed midfielder of the competition at the moment. He's very underrated with how he goes about it.
Yep.
So I was going to give Jacko my one vote. I agree with you. Basically everything you said, totally agree. Jordan Dawson is going to get my 2 votes. I just think he's playing some great footy. And my 3 votes, because I watched this game from start to finish, is out of your game. And I genuinely think you guys don't win if he doesn't play. And that's Harris Andrews. I feel like he was unbelievable, mate. He's intercept marking, the amount of one-on-ones he had, especially in the third and fourth quarter when the game was really in the balance. And West Coast, when they were turning the ball over, because you guys had some really bad turnovers, mate, he was like, Harris Andrews was one-on-one most of the time, and he genuinely won the contest, or he just halved it. So, he's my 3 votes. I thought he was incredible.
I agree with that. He was back to his ultimate best on the weekend, Big Chief. So it's good to have that. Moving on, our Bloom of the Week, mate. Before we get our guest on, we've got to go through our Blooms of the Week. Mine has already been touched on. It was North Melbourne. So we already sort of talked about it. We should have done this at the start, but we just want to thank Brooke and the team, as always, for all their support, ongoing support. We love the team and what she does. So make sure you shoot her a message if you need your backyard done. Who's your Brooks Bloom of the Week?
I'm going down the horse racing track again because that's just what I love, and probably would close to be my favourite horse at the moment with Brightside and Romantic Warrior. Via Sistina is an absolute joy to watch at the moment, Via Sistina. And I don't know if you've seen that race on the weekend. It was the Randwick Stakes. Mate, it was genuinely a sit and steer job. There wasn't any need to try and push the horse. He literally just waltzed in. So Via Sistina is my Bloom of the Week. Unbelievable race on the weekend.
Well, we'll announce who the guest is now. You want to do it, mate? You want to do the honours?
No, you do it, mate. You're good at this.
Your name's first on the shirt, mate. So you might as well do it.
Oh, all right. Well, I'll do it. And again, as we've touched on, this is a plan. Obviously, going forward, we'd love to have some more guests on. So this is actually our first official guest for this season, and it's Mark Howie Howard, who we're super excited about. He's a man of all. He supposedly had many talents growing up. Could play cricket, play footy. Clearly got the gift of the gab. He can talk very well as he commentates basically every single sport in the world. So, and he recently did a potty with Chris Fagan, which is large part of the reason behind getting him on. But super excited about getting him on and asking him a couple of questions. So, make sure you're still listening because he's an exciting guest to have on.
All right, Adzi, we've finally got a guest on, mate, and it's Mark Howard, as you mentioned before the break. Welcome to you, Howie. Thanks for coming on, mate. Really appreciate it.
I haven't heard before the break, so Ads, like, what was the intro? I'm pumped to be on the show, but was it a positive intro or was it a negative intro?
Very positive, mate. We're positive people here and we pump most people up. But as Joshy said, we're super excited about having you on, mate. I'm going to say, not that you probably would believe this, but a very iconic voice yours is. You're, especially in this generation, because watching the cricket, mate, watching the footy, whatever it may be, your voice is always attached to that. And a large part of that for me as well, watching a lot of the BBL over December time, January time. So it's a pleasure to have you on. And as Joshy said, our first guest we've actually done in a long, long time. So thanks for coming on, mate.
No, I really appreciate it. I was actually it's been a pretty full-on afternoon. I've been at my daughter's athletics training and then just helping with junior footy with my young bloke. And while I was watching my daughter run around a track, I was listening to your episode from last week. And it's funny because the media can be such a negative place. And I think you were doing the intro ad and you said, and I'm joined by my best friend, Josh. And I thought, I actually found it quite touching because, like, we have best friends when we were in year 6 and year 7 and year 8. And then, we become too cool for school. But to hear you say that, it gave me a lift. And I thought, wow, that is a massively positive show. So I'm looking forward to coming on because there is too much negativity in the media. So, it gave me a lift to hear it when I was listening to it this afternoon.
Oh, you're a kind man, mate. I like to intro Joshy like that because he is my best mate. And This is largely when we get to see each other. So I'm glad we could have that impact on you with just such a little part of it. And, throughout the future, mate, in the episodes, every single time I intro, I'm going to do the exact same thing. So it's cool that you listen to that little bit. That's nice to hear.
Do you blokes follow, random question, I'm just looking at Josh at the moment, do you blokes follow Formula One at all?
I do, mate. It's something that I've probably followed for about, 5 or 6 years, I reckon. So, all the star drivers of the past, little decade, I guess you probably know. But I've gotten into it a lot. I actually took ads there when we first started doing our podcast together with Andrew Westcott was the CEO. So he took us down to the track before the Oz Grand Prix. I can't remember what year that was, ads, 22 maybe?
Yeah, 22. 22. It was really cool.
Well, the reason I asked, Joshy, because you are a fair dinkum spitting image for Ferrari's Charles Leclerc, the man out of Monaco. Like, you look the same
Don't tell him
as
that.
Charles
Please don't tell him that.
You do. You don't live in Monaco.
That's nice.
You don't drive a Ferrari, and you're probably not on 20 mil a year, but you look like Charles Leclerc.
Howie, give him 10 years out of the system. He will be driving a Ferrari, and he will be probably living in Monaco, and he probably will be earning $20 million a year. That's just how connected the bloke is.
That's not true. That is not true. But Howie, we thought we might ask you a few questions, mate. Like the way that we know a lot of people know your career and your journey, but we talked about it before. We sort of introed you before. Fags' episode that you did, how did you find that? Was it good? Did you enjoy? Did you think Fags was a little bit weird around the edges, or give us an insight?
I thought he was phenomenal. I didn't think he would be as open as he was. He was very open about middle of the year last year, Dunks, and having a few health issues, and it wasn't going your team's way, and he was going to step away for a month or longer. I didn't know that was coming. He was very open about what had happened at Hawthorn and what that had done to him and his family. But I take something from every 230 odd episodes of the Howie Games in. I take something from every episode, and you just get full of all this wisdom. And the thing I took from him, and he said right at the start, he said, I see myself at the footy club as the chief energy officer, the CEO, the chief energy officer. And that was my takeaway, that there's this, he's now the oldest premiership coach in history, and he was sitting in the studio and he was just bursting with vitality, telling these stories. But, there's all this stuff about coaching and tactics, but you'd be able to tell us, Dunks, that's what I took away, is to bring energy into organisations and groups that I'm involved with, because if it's good enough for the premiership coach at 63, then it's good enough for me to try and bring that energy.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I've noticed. Fags is very good at, I guess, managing energy too. Like if he ever senses that there's a down day, or, what it's like, everyone goes through life, you ride that roller coaster of emotion and energy levels. And he's so good at being like, all right, don't worry about the meeting today, boys. Like, let's just move on to the next thing and do that kind of stuff. Meetings never go for longer than an hour. Like, it's just little things like that I feel he does so well. And he's our energy. He's our father figure. He's our dad at times. Like, he's so good. He's so good.
He told fantastic stories. Like my family grew up in Tasmania as well, and he started telling stories about his days playing in Queenstown. And ads, I don't know if you're aware, it's a gravel oval there because there's so much rainfall. And, he was go back and have a look, ads. I'll send you the link of a grand final he played in that he won the premiership in the Tassie comp. And the first 8 minutes of the game is an all-in brawl. And he had to go to the tribunal twice, but the same bloke hit him twice. He didn't hit anyone, but the same bloke hit him twice. But you need to get to the 9-minute mark of the YouTube clip before they actually bounce the ball, because it's all in. So he got some good footy stories. And then the other thing he spoke about, which again is what I took away, he was coaching Sandy Bay in Tasmania. He'd been a representative footballer, but he didn't know how he was going to get a start in the AFL. And he wrote letters, I think it was in the 90s, to quite a few of the AFL clubs, and it was Neil Danaher that got back to him and invited him over, and that's how he originally got his start. So, I've learned on this podcast, everyone gets their starts in different ways, and your premiership coach, Dunks, wrote letters ad hoc to a variety of clubs, and now he's a premiership coach. It's extraordinary where people start and where they end up.
Yeah, what an amazing man. I mean, I don't know what would be harder, playing in the 80s or playing on the gravel. I'll pass on both of them because I don't think I'd go too well in that. But you did mention before how obviously you've had some special guests, and I looked it up. It was your 233rd episode that you've done with fakes.
Yep.
So you've clearly been doing it for a while. I wanted to know, well, Josh and I both want to know, who have been, I guess, some of your favourite guests, and what have you taken from, I guess, those guests in particular?
It's funny. I said to you guys, I've just come from junior footy training. That's why I was running a little bit late. So I've got more of an involvement in the under-14s in Barwon Heads this year. We've just finished cricket and footy started, and I had a chat to the coach and said, "Listen, I'm not your how to play backline forward line man. I can be your Captain Good Vibes Chief Energy Officer. I think I can run the fitness, and I can probably try and bring a little bit of culture." So we've got 4 culture rules that we've tried to bring in to the under-14 boys, and I've picked those rules of culture up from 234 episodes, to be honest, ads. But if there was one main takeaway from the podcast, and I use this analogy in the show, is that hard work trumps all. It doesn't matter what field you're in, whether it's sport or science or being a tradie or a mathematician. From what I can gather, in 234 eps, I reckon there's 5 Ricky Pontings that their talent was always ads going to have them playing for Australia, no matter what they really did. But 95% are Justin Langers, who had talent but just worked and worked and worked and worked. So that's been, I know it sounds simple, but my main takeaway is those that work the hardest achieve the most success. Episodes that stick out, it's like trying to choose my favourite children. For various reasons, Luke Longley told phenomenal stories about playing with Jordan and Scottie Pippen and playing in the Chicago Bulls repeat and what Jordan was like. And he described him as like a tiger on the court, and everyone else on the court was a goat, and he would just attack them. Like, there's things like that that stick in my head. A lot of people have spoken openly about mental health, which has had a real impact on me. Elena Dokic talking about the abuse she received from her father. So, you know, there can be really uplifting moments and there can be really difficult moments to hear. But it's filled me with a lot of an understanding of what it takes to be really good, which is why it's funny. I'm really pumped to be involved with the under-14 boys and try and draw up a bit of culture, because I feel like I've learnt so much from so many amazing people. It's a real privilege to pick up these lessons. So hopefully the young boys at Barwon Heads can pick up on a few of them as well.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I feel like, you know, to be honest with you, I listen to quite a few of your podcast episodes, mate. I take great joy in listening. I feel like, you know, for a lot of the guests to open up the way that they do, they clearly feel safe within your presence, and I feel like that's what you give to them. So, yeah, obviously they're great guests, but you clearly give them great comfort and as I said, feel safe within their presence and listen to some of those stories, as you said. And I listen to that Luke Longley Luke Longley podcast, because I'm a huge basketball fan and Michael Jordan is and forever will be the GOAT of basketball. But even, as you said, listening to those stories, mate, I was on the edge of my seat driving, listening, because, you know, just to hear someone who played with Michael Jordan is amazing. For you to be able to sit there and talk to that, I mean, just incredible and amazing at what you do.
Thank you. It's become a full-time operation. It's become a full-time business with marketing and social media, and this is what you guys will be going through at the moment. And, you know, I've heard your ad at the start, so there's sales as well, and there's all this periphery around it that is not the reason I got involved in it, but takes time. But the hour and a half or 2 hours sitting with Luke Longley or Chris Fagan or Craig McRae or Kathy Freeman or Ian Thorpe, like, I can just drop name after name and sound like a real knob. But to sit with these elite people for 2 hours and then be open is an enormous privilege. Like, where do you get to sit for 2 hours and talk to Ricky Ponting about cricket, or, you know, Adam Gilchrist about cricket, or like Elena Dokic about tennis, or Mark Philippoussis about tennis? Like, where do you get that opportunity? So when they come in there, you need to do a good job, because people are giving you their time, their energy and their effort, and you also need to be really aware of what you're wandering into. I had Meg Lanning on the show last year, who's probably Australia's greatest ever female cricketer as far as batting goes.
Certainly.
And I had an understanding that there was a few things in Meg's world, Josh, that probably weren't aligning, but I didn't know what they were. And all of a sudden she went into them in depth, and it's like, okay, do I console? Do I listen? Do I not say anything? What question do I ask? You you have to tread very carefully at some stage. And sometimes I look back and think, geez, I can't believe I said that. But I guess if you listen and spend more time listening than talking, things normally end up okay.
It'd be generally really raw, I guess, in those podcasts too. Like you wouldn't be cutting it up or changing things the way people are talking about it live, would you?
No. All I say to any guest right at the start, if I had either of you on it, whether it was Fags or Meg or anyone, I said it to Fags. If I ask, I've said this so many times, I can recite it to you by rote. If I ask anything that makes you uncomfortable, or you answer it in any way that you wake up tomorrow or the next day and you don't want in there, we are not. I always use the same analogy. We are not here to put you on the front page of the Herald Sun. We're here for you to be able to feel safe and comfortable and enjoy talking about your journeys and experiences. And I reckon once in every 40 episodes, someone says, the way I said that, I don't like that in there, or they ring me a week later and say, you know what, that's gonna create a headline that I don't want to deal with, and we just chop it out straight away. So I think if you start like that, I remember having Cadell Evans on and saying that to him right at the start, and he said to me before we started, "What? So you won't ask me anything about drugs in cycling?" I was like, "No, mate. There's nothing positive I can ask you about that." And like it's like he just took a deep breath, and you could just see him relax and get into his story. So, I think you need to make people feel comfortable, but also be very true. People have asked for stuff to cut out, and I'm like, oh, geez, I so want that in there. But if they say they want to cut out, that's the guarantee. No questions asked, we chop it out.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll be the same, Adzi, over our journey. But it's funny you mentioned how the enjoyment of doing it, you don't do it for the sponsorships and the numbers and all that kind of stuff. You just do it because you love doing it. Like that's similar to what we've brought up, Ads. I reckon you'd agree, is like the way that we do our stuff is we just like, one day we met when we got together and we were like, oh, we can talk shit for hours, mate. So why not put a microphone in the middle and see if people enjoy it? And they have. So that's why we're still here now and doing it. So it's just something that we love doing, and it's a nice avenue for us now that we live interstate and we can't really catch up as much as what we used to, but to be able to do this once a week is what we love.
And plus, I'm a realist, mate. I've probably got a couple more years left, so I need to start thinking about what my life after footy looks like.
Well, I think you make a couple of really, really good points. One, that you get to speak to your mate every week, which is very, very cool. I think the second is a lot of people say to me, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. And the first thing I say to them, not that there's so much I don't know about it, but the first thing I say, if you're going into it because you want to make money, don't. If you're going into it because you want to raise your profile, don't. Go into it because you enjoy the actual creativity. And if you do a good job, the rest will take care of itself, which you guys, you've got your sponsors, you're up and away, but I don't need to tell you how much work is involved in coming up with content every single week. So, I could tell you 50 people that have asked me about a podcast that have done 5 episodes and then they never progress from there, because it's not an easy thing to constantly back up. Like I'm sitting here at the moment and I know my next 3 guests, and I'm like, okay, so who are we going to get on after that? And at any one stage, we might have I call them like 10 fishing lines in the river, because some guests, it took me 4 years to get Kelly Slater, my favourite athlete, on the show. So you always need to be, even in a quiet moment, I'm thinking, okay, what are we doing next? What are we doing next? So it does take up a lot of time, effort, and energy, but it is worth it when it's worth it when it makes a positive difference to someone. Like people send you messages, but I had a bloke walking down past my street literally yesterday. And I live in a small town, little town, Barwon Heads, and he had his phone in his pocket. This dude's like 75. He doesn't have headphones in. He's just listening to audio out of his phone. And as he walked past my gate, I had to go out. I was like, shit, that's Alan Border on the Howie games. And I stopped him. I said, oh, mate, what do you listen to? And he said, oh, my son, he put me onto these things called podcasts. Have you ever heard of them? I said, yeah, I have. He said, this podcast, I love my cricket, and it's got all sorts of cricketers. And I said, oh, right. He said, yeah, it's this guy, Howie, his name is. And I said, I actually said to him, mate, pull out the phone. He said, oh, yeah, I'll show you what it is. And then he pulled it out, and it's obviously got my photo on there. I said, oh, that's me. And he's like, yeah, no. I said, no, that's me. And he's looked at it. And it was so Australian. He said, Struth, wait till I tell me missus. It's you. I can't believe it. Oh, Struth. And then he told me about how his doctor had told him with his health he needed to walk more, and how the podcast had got him out walking. I went in feeling like the king of the world, not because we had an ad on the podcast or because it had certain people listen to it. It was because old mate that calls his missus my missus and uses the word truth, it was a positive as well. And I think that's you will have people come up to you and say, "Oh, ads or dunks. I really enjoyed this show for this reason, or it gave me a lift here." And I like, there's no greater gift, I don't think.
Yeah, it's
so
amazing. It's an amazing insight into already just a little bit about you, Howie, and about kind of what your life is consisted of at the moment. Like, well, now really, like you obviously. You're well and truly involved in the media. You do the podcast game. You're everywhere basically, and it's a cool little insight to know. And I agree with you. I totally agree with the positive side of things. I mean, Josh and I have we certainly have a lot of fans who message in, stuff like. I'm so grateful that I'm able to listen to you two talk every Tuesday. You were both our favourite player when you played together. Now that it's cool to see you guys working together. So it's you're right. The positive side of things is the thing that I reckon and I know Josh as well gets the most joy out of. And a lot of that is a lot of that is stuff away from footy. And that's the exciting thing about this is, a lot of the stuff we get messaged or a lot of the stuff that I get stopped and spoken to about, and don't get me wrong, a lot of it is footy, but a lot of it as well is the stuff that we talk about on the podcast and how that's helped them in many ways. And, you talk about the mental health side of things. That's something I've clearly been a massive advocate for. So the amount of times we've got stopped and spoken to about that and about, you've changed my life because of you and Josh talking about your struggles in footy, your struggles in life. It's amazing. So I couldn't agree more with everything you're saying. And as I said, it's a really cool insight into just what your day-to-day life consists of.
It's funny because I was thinking back to it. You came on Triple M Footy at one stage, ads, and you spoke very openly about mental health. And I remember the number of messages we were getting through at the station. And I think I messaged you 2 days later saying, so this is 4 or 5 years ago. I started the podcast 9 years ago, and I reckon still 9 years ago it was a bit of a taboo. And you were probably at the forefront in the AFL. I reckon you'd agree, Dunks, that your mate was at the forefront of really opening up about mental health. And I remember the impact it had through the people sending messages and social media. And I did text you. I remember along the lines of, mate, I hope you understand the positive impact you're having on the community. It's amazing, isn't it, that, and I have a lot of teachers tell me this, that they can get up in front of a room and talk about anxiety, for instance, and then they can get up in front of the room and play a clip with Lauren Jackson talking about being a kid and having separation anxiety, and the impact they have is okay. The impact a person of influence have, which is you,
absolutely,
that everybody in the community just cuts through even further. Like if Lauren Jackson has separation anxiety as a kid, well, that's okay if I do it. If Adam Treloar is out there being a jet footballer and he's happy to talk about some of the issues he's had when he was growing up, then okay, then I can deal with that as well. And I think that's what you guys and everybody in a position of influence can have such a positive impact on the community because people look up to you. We just recently did a pre-season diary 8-part series with Scotty Pendlebury.
Yep.
And you've played with him, ads, and it's like he's perfect. But then he starts sending you these voice messages in the podcast saying, I got up today and I just couldn't be bothered to train, but I knew if I didn't, blah, blah, blah. And so many people were like, I went back to the gym because I heard Pendles, and if Pendles has bad days and gets it done, well, maybe I can have a crack too. So I think you two understand the privileged position you're in, and if you use it wisely, you can help an enormous cross-section of the community, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's you don't realise until probably now, as like the way that we've sort of grown across your career, the influence that you can have on so many different people. But Howie, talk to us about, you've been involved in a lot of different sports. You've mentioned a lot of people that you've had on your podcasts.
Yep.
I'm interested in knowing what you have the most respect for in terms of sporting field, like person, player, whatever it might be. What do you think is what's your highest respect in terms of that?
I won't say the most courageous. I think the gutsiest athletes are either boxers, jockeys, or MotoGP riders. I've had all those on the podcast. I think the ones that I'm in awe of, I grew up obsessed with cricket. So I'm like, I see what the cricketers can do. Like, so to answer your question, Ads, it is the top shelf batsmen and batswomen in the world. Like, I lost a cricket grand final on the weekend, and I played the world's worst shot.
Mate.
Mate, I had to go to work after it, which is a story. Like, it was a freaking nightmare.
Was this LMS?
Mate, it was Geelong St Kilda on Saturday night, and we had a 2-day grand final, and we'd already lost on the first day, and I had to congratulate the opposition, get in the car, and drive up and call Geelong St Kilda. So, at my age, like, I was still gutted about losing a cricket grand final, and I'm still thinking about the way I got out. So when I see someone like Virat Kohli live, and like, you just don't understand how quick these blokes are when they're bowling. When Stark's bowling and he's got so much time, it's a long-winded answer, Ads, and I shouldn't have talked about my own pathetic cricket grand final effort. But to see the world's best batters in the big stadiums, I was lucky enough to call the World Cup final when India and Australia played in front of 125,000, and the cricket is the one. Like, I love the footy, but I can really appreciate the skill of the cricketers even more, I think.
Well, that's cool, because that was my follow-up question to what Josh was saying. Is you obviously, you've called a lot of sports. I would like to know what has been your favourite AFL game you've called, and what's been your favourite non-AFL event you've called live?
So the favourite non-AFL event is the World Cup final. So I only did the back end of the World Cup. I was on a surf trip, and then went to India and called a few games, called the Aussie games. And it's funny in India, you don't. I sit there. I'll be honest with you. I sit there and I'm sitting next to Sunil Gavaskar and Ravi Shastri and Ian Smith and Matthew Hayden and like Sachin Tendulkar, and like, you do think, what the hell? Like, I just told you about
That's funny.
And final I lost on the weekend. I sit there and it gives me a freaking massive buzz. So you get through the preliminary round, and then you have a ticket to go home. And I got back, and I think the last game was in Pune, and you just get a message from the BCCI and the ICC, change of plan. Here's your new flight. You're going to Kolkata for the semi-final. And you're like, wow, I'm going to be Australia, South Africa at a Cricket World Cup semi-final at the ground where my sporting hero, Alan Border, won the World Cup in 1987. Like, and you look at the commentary list and you think, right, he's played 100 tests, he's played 150 tests, he's played internationals. I'm playing for Barnett Seagrave. Like, it's daunting. And then I walked back in, Australia won, and I walked back in and to the Oberoi Hotel in Kolkata, and your Wi-Fi kicks in and you get a WhatsApp message, and I couldn't open it. I'd done in my head the numbers of commentators from Australia and India that were there, and I thought, I'm going to be 14th man here. I'm not going to make the touring party. And I walked up to my room, I had a shower, and then I'm like, I've got to look at it. And it just said, no, change of plan. You're not going home. You're going to the World Cup final. And it was
wow,
that's where you get a night. And to be there, and they said there was 125,000 people there. I'll never forget the silence when Pat Cummins got Virat Kohli. Like, Australia was probably, India was probably 70-30 favourites. And then we were 3 for not many. And then Travis Head just did what Travis Head did. And it was, I've got goosebumps thinking about it. But the crowd, there was no anger, there was no animosity. I was walking out of the ground, and people know you from Australia, and they come up to you and say, "Oh, congratulations!" They're not devastated. Dunks Brisbane lost a game of footy, and they're Lions fans. Like, this is their absolute existence. They are devastated. Yeah. But they still come up and pat you on the shoulder and say, "Oh, well done, Australia was better today." So that is the one that stands out in my mind. That was a long-winded answer. The best game of footy, Ads. Oh,
they've called live. Yes, that you've called live.
Yeah. I hate to say this, Dunks, probably the Collingwood premiership a couple of years ago, because it came right down to the last couple of moments. That, or the Carlton final win when Blake Acres kicked a late goal a few years ago, and we just lost our mind in it. Like, when there's 90,000 people, like, grand final day is, to commentate a close grand final, even if the result hasn't gone the way that you were hoping, it's I think the finals are where it makes the big difference. But I was there. It's funny because I called your grand final win last year, Dunks. But it's funny because, like, it's a huge crowd and it's a massive event. And you get so many messages, oh, you're biased about this, you're biased about that. You're never biased. You actually want a close game. So, I'm pumped Brisbane won, but it would have been a better result if you kicked a goal after the siren to win the grand final. Because from a work sense, that's better than you winning by 10 goals. Not that you give a stuff. You got the medallion and on you go.
yeah, totally. We were talking about that before, Ads, like how much influence do you get from, you said you get a lot of text messages and, I don't know, messages probably on DMs on Instagram or whatever from random fans. Like, how much of that influences, we were talking about umpires earlier in the potty before you jumped on, and how much influence crowd and potentially that kind of stuff has on umpires. How much does it have on someone like yourself?
Like, when there's a massive crowd, it makes your job easier because the crowd is the soundtrack to the game. You only want a close game. You get, social media is an interesting one, Dunks. I have times when I love it and I have times when I hate it. If you commentate Australia, okay, what's the best way to say this? If I'm working in India on the IPL or cricket, you'll literally get 1,500 messages at the end of the game. And 1,499 of those are positive. Like, amazing stuff. Really? Like, sir, you have a melodious voice. It is so wonderful you're in our country. Like stuff that's hard to describe. You call in Australia a game of footy, and you might get 20 messages, and 12 of them will be, I hate you and everything you represent. And that's the bare fact.
That is shit house.
You would deal with that as footballers and athletes. I think we've lost our way a little bit in this country, that the fact that people are so angry about life that they just want to lash out at whoever is in their face at the time. Like, I don't know, how do you guys deal with this? You would get, like, I've seen Aaron Finch showed me once. He got out cheaply, and I worked with him the next night. He showed me what he received on social media after Big Bash game, and I actually couldn't believe what I was reading.
Well, Josh, you've got an interesting one from the Bulldogs. Was it when you guys played Sydney?
Yeah, we played Sydney, and it was a close game, Howie. And there was a ball kicked in. I reckon there was probably a minute to go. We were down by 3 points, and there was a ball kicked in. I was 10 metres out, running backwards, I'm fairly sure, with the flight of the ball. Dropped the chest mark. Yep. Sydney picked it up and took it up the other end and scored, and we were done. We lost the game. And I was shattered. I think I was probably second or third year at the time, in tears after the game. You know, lost a game of footy for my club, for my team. Family were in the rooms crying. I was just crying. I got a message on my phone after that from some random on social media took a screenshot of maps from Marvel Stadium to the Westgate Bridge and showed me the distance and everything, where to go, and told me to go and jump off. Like, that's the stuff that you deal with.
I think we've lost our way a little bit. But like, from a global perspective, as I say, India, they could not be more positive. Like, I just get nothing but love in India. And then in Australia, it can be direct, it can be brutal. The only ones that really ever get through to me, though, is when I know, like, if you call the players, say you call a game of footy, right? Say I was doing St Kilda Geelong. So I've done 5 games this year now on the telly. I haven't got a player wrong. I know I haven't got a player wrong. Like, that's my starting point. Don't get a player wrong. Don't call. Like, sometimes you just have mind blanks. Like, last year I called Henry Close. Now, Close wears a freaking long sleeve, right? It looks nothing like Henry, and I don't know why. I just said it, right? And, I've got 7 messages. You're a dickhead. You don't know anything about football. Close is like Henry. And they're the ones that do stay with me a little bit, because I know I got it wrong. And it annoyed me. So when someone else points it out, so I don't know if that's the same with you guys. Like, if you cock something up on the field, you know it yourself. Then if someone highlights it, it's like, yeah, actually you're right. And that's the ones that stay with me a little bit. As much as I tell myself, some dude in a basement, with his 17 cats, I don't know what he's got going on. It shouldn't have any effect on you. But it's the ones that point out mistakes that you've made, that you're annoyed at yourself with, they're the ones that stay with me for a little bit of time. I don't know how you guys go with that.
So it's fair to say you would have actually had to, like, even in the media industry, like, you know, grow a bit of thick skin, if you want to call it, and just not worry about what people say, because that's obviously what we get told as players, largely when you're younger coming through, just to basically not worry about it. And believe me, it's taken a long time for someone like me to not worry about what people say to me or what they think of me. But yeah, it's fair to say you've got to grow some thick skin as well.
Massively. I'm a really what's the best way? I'm a really sort of calm, even, you know, I don't get up or down. I'm a real calm, even dude that, like, I don't suffer from any, thankfully I haven't had any anxiety or mental health issues. That's not me. But I work with a lot of people that do experience different things, and you can see it. Like, I've sat next to people before at quarter time, and I've seen them look at their phone, and you can see the air just sucked out of them, and like you can see it happening in front of you. So I look at it during a game, because if I have got something wrong, someone will point it out, and then it'll stop me making that mistake again. But then sometimes I think, I should just push on and not look at it. It's a tricky one, but yeah, we could talk about this subject for hours. I just think if you're listening to this and you're a person that has sent a negative message to someone that you don't know, just realise that they're a normal dude or dudette, and they're at work and they're doing their best, and they've made a mistake like you have. But your job as an accountant, you don't have random dudes telling you cocked up the profit and loss statement, whereas
great point.
Unfortunately, you do.
You grew up in Gippsland, Tyres?
I did. You're a Yarra boy, hey, Dunks? Yeah, I did.
Hey, yeah, I'm a Yarra boy. Gippsland boys, mate.
Yeah, I'm aware.
What are some of your memories from your early childhood days, mate?
My old man had a job where he worked at paper mills. So, you know, I went to, like, I don't know, maybe 9 different primary schools. Like, I spent time in Sydney, in Perth, in Melbourne, and then but my whole high school was in a little place called Tyres, which is just out of Traralgon, home of the great Timmy Membry, a good Traralgon boy. And I went to school in Sale, which is home of the great Scott Pendlebury. So without realising it, I didn't play much footy. I played a lot of cricket. So you know, I was doing what my son's doing now, growing up in a small country town, and all of a sudden playing cricket as a 13-year-old against men. And that was a massive experience. Like, you know, we'd go to the local hotel in Traralgon after a game of cricket, and I'd have to sit in the corner and drink lemonade, and, you know, they're all having beers and talking about their girlfriends and this and that. I was like, oh, geez, this is a bit blonde. So sport was a big part of it. But I think the fact that we moved around a lot, like we'd live in Melbourne 6 months, and then Dad'd get another job, and we'd be in Perth for 2 years, and then we'd be in Sydney for 3 months and back in Perth. I think without realising it, because resilience wasn't a word when we were growing up at all. No one taught you about resilience. But I think I developed resilience because I was the new kid at school frequently. And, you both know what it's like being the new kid at school. It takes a bit of navigating. So I think without realising it, I was, one, reasonably resilient from a young age, and two, if I was in one spot for too long, and that's been prevalent throughout my whole life, I get a bit edgy and always want to sort of know what's next and where's next. So they'd be my two main sort of memories from growing up, I reckon.
The earlier you can build resilience as a youngster, the better off you'll be long term. I certainly believe that. I another follow-up question of that, and this might be a little bit sensitive considering we've got a fellow Gippsland boy on the podcast here. Who's been the best athlete you've seen from the Gippsland area?
Well, Dunkley's got 2 premierships and looks like Charles Leclerc, so that's a pretty good starting point. The woodchopper from Morwell, Peter Siddle, just played his last game of Shield cricket.
Yes,
and took a wicket with the ball. Dale Thomas is from sort of South Gippy Way. I'll be honest though.
Pendles. Yep.
Yeah, I think Pendles. There'll be others, but I think Scotty's hard to beat. Like he's probably going to break the all-time games record, which has been, how long we've been playing footy for, 150 years. And the podcast I was doing with him, it was a different one. Like he'd send me voice memos of his training day and what he was thinking and what he was doing, and I'd listen to it and then send him voice memos back and forth questions. So I'd get up and get the kids to school alongside my wife, and then I'd turn my phone on, and it'd be 8:30, and freaking Scotty had done leg day. He'd had a sauna. He'd had an ice bath. He'd ridden 50 Ks on the bike. He'd made 4 coffees, and he was about to go for a run. And I'm just having a cup of tea thinking, how am I going to no, so I found it extremely motivating to get out there and really have a crack. So I don't know. You've played with him, Ad, so you know all this stuff, and you played against him, Dunks. But he is elite with a capital E, isn't he? In everything he does.
Yeah, he's an amazing human being, and as you said, with what you just said, for the ones who are listening, that is no word of a lie. Before 8:30, he would 100% have done all those things. And I love how you said thrown in the 4 coffees, because I know he's a coffee connoisseur. He loves his coffee. So, and it's someone he's someone that you idolised, Joshy, growing up, wasn't it? Because you're obviously the same area.
Yeah, it was, because I went to school in Sale as well, Howie, and Scotty, Gippsland Grammar.
Oh, that's where I went to school. I did not know this.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
Grammar school.
Yep. So Pendle's, yeah, he used to text me in the summer holidays over Christmas and stuff, when he'd obviously just gotten drafted and playing at Collingwood, and then became the skipper. But we used to train together at Christmas time. Every Christmas day, I used to ask Mum and Dad to drive me from Yarram to Sale, which is like 45 to an hour, to train with Scott Pendlebury. And from there, I was just like, this is just incredible. So, yeah, he's been one of my idols for a long period of time.
And you also won a flag with Ryan Pendlebury, didn't you?
Yes, at Sale. So Ryan, his brother. So I was 15, I think, 16 when I played in the Sale Premiership with his brother Ryan. So Scotty was there, and his whole family, Bruce and Critter, like they were all down there. So it was awesome to be able to be involved with that family and, yeah, the Sale Footy Club.
Well, I didn't know you were a Stags boy. I did not know that. He sent me a message after one of the. So they had that weird game where they played you guys. They played Brisbane, Gold Coast, and Collingwood. It was like a 3-way game, right? And he sent me a message the next morning for the pod. And he's like, "Okay, we got recovery at 8:00 at somewhere, but I've organised to go and do a sauna and ice baths. I think it was at Southport Footy Club at 6:30. So I grabbed a few of the boys. So basically, what he was saying, he was doing recovery before recovery.
Yeah.
That's the level he goes to. So, yes, that's the one I'm saying. Do you think it's so often team-related? Like, if Collingwood have a tough year, it'll be in focus. If they have a great year, it won't be in focus. So I'll ask you two, do you think he will break the record of most games played, which means he needs to play on next season?
Yes, I do. Josh?
Yeah, I do too. I just think he's the ultimate professional. Like, Adsy and I, a funny story, we're up in Noosa this year, and he's doing the Noosa try. Like, he does the Noosa try better than anyone that does the Noosa try. It's like, how the heck is he doing that?
And what I love about that is, again, people who are listening think, AFL athletes, they play footy, and that's what their life clearly revolves around. For Pendles, and I think it's clearly seen as well through, obviously, the Howie Games podcast you're doing with him and whatnot. He's very much a human being before he is a footy player. Yes, he's doing these things to get himself up to play footy, but he does it for his general health and well-being. He as Josh said, he goes and does a triathlon because he just wants to do one, and he's still able to go out there and play another game or play many more games of AFL. So that's something that, again, is just an amazing insight for someone who will be regarded as one of the great players of all time.
Imagine the size of the event if he breaks the record. The game's bigger every year, but that's I don't know if you guys saw. Well, obviously you did, Ads. I thought the Bulldogs did a Footscray, I must say, did an amazing job with the celebrations the other night. Like Bob Murphy on the ground and the players. Like I've seen a lot of sport that really touched me. So I've thought ahead. Imagine what it will be like if it's like a Collingwood home game and Scott Pendlebury's breaking their record of the most games of all time. It'll be be something to tell your kids about, I reckon.
I think it's going to be a massive moment if it happens. That's the thing, if it happens. But I'm sure it will. Anything else you got for Howie, Ads? Or you're wrapping it up there, mate?
I feel like we can talk forever, and I kind of want to, but unfortunately, we've done a 45-minute podcast prior to our special guest jumping on. So our loyal listeners are going to be listening for an hour and a half, and we cannot wait. But Super grateful to have you on, Howie. You're speaking from the heart here, you're a wonderful man, mate. And I just love, firstly your podcast, but I love everything that you're about. I love how when you showcase someone or when you, talk to someone, you're so invested, you're so thorough with what you're talking about. Your intent is to listen and want to learn. And that just speaks volumes as you as a character. And it's a great privilege for Josh and I to have you on the podcast. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for jumping on.
Well, it's weird to be the one asked questions, but I've enjoyed it. I didn't know Charles Leclerc went to St Anne's Gippsland Grammar School. I didn't know that about your dunks, which is fantastic. There's not many of us around. I'll come on again at some stage, and we need to talk travel at some stage. I can talk travel with you blokes for hours as well.
Yes.
That is my great passion in life. But I appreciate it. Say go to Fags for me. I'm going to tell you one last story about when you asked me about Fags. So we've had, as you said, Ads, 234 guests on the show. It's a massive privilege that they come on, and I am indebted to them all. And I don't say that lightly. Like, they're giving up their time, their intellectual property, their stories. They're giving up, their emotions. But of those 234 guests, after they've come on, when the episodes come out, 2 guests in 234 have sent me a message which has blown my socks off, basically saying, thanks for the opportunity to come on the podcast. I hope it's well received. The first guest to ever do it was Justin Langer.
Wow.
And last week, I think it was Wednesday night, I got a message from Chris Fagan, which made my month, basically saying, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I enjoyed the conversation, said some nice things, and said, I hope people enjoy it. So that is the man you go to work with every day, Dunks, and I think you're pretty lucky. I think that's a good way to finish. I think you're pretty lucky to have a man like that in your life.
Absolutely, we are. He's a great man, and I actually mentioned to him this morning about the training that you were coming on, and he just got this big smile on his face, mate. So I'm sure he had a great time on your podcast. But as he said, echo everything. Thanks, mate, for coming on. We really appreciate it, and hope everyone enjoys the listen.
Cheers, guys. Best of luck for the footy season, Ads. Hope the calf sorts itself out and you're out there soon. And best of luck at the Japanese Grand Prix, Dunks, which is your next start in the Ferrari.
Thanks, Harry.
Thanks, mate. Well, Adsy, first guest, didn't disappoint, did it, mate? It was pretty good.
No, it didn't. He's a wonderful man, isn't he? He's so positive and just a joy to talk to, don't you reckon? Someone like, when you talk to people and they just give you like happy vibes, it's just, wonderful bloke to talk to.
I must say, I do feel a lot happier and I guess more content after speaking to him. So, thanks again to Howie for jumping on. But we'll move on from that and quickly touch on our winner for this week's giveaway. And I've got it written down here. So he asked for a curly question for Ads. And at Zane De Silva, 1617 on YouTube, has written in, and he says, if you're on a long haul flight of, let's say, 12 hours by yourself in economy, and then in brackets he's thrown in there, we all know Ads flies business only, where are you booking your seat in a 3-4-3 plane configuration? Take into consideration the prestige of the window seat, how many times the people around you will want to get up, and how many times you would want to get up throughout the flight. Do you go with the extra, or do you go with the window view, the aisle seat for extra leg room, or do you go with the middle as a Hail Mary for free seats either side at the risk of being surrounded by strangers? That's your curly question, mate, for this week.
Mate, you lost me after he said I've got the. I reckon they've clearly got the two people who podcast this wrong. You're the silver spooner, mate. I'm the freaking. If I'm more than happy to sit at the back, you're the one who's sitting at the front in the business class. Jeez.
Well, answer the question, mate. Answer the question.
Oh, mate, I zoned out as soon as he said that.
Where are you sitting on a 3-4-3 seater plane?
I'm sitting aisle. Always go the aisle.
Why?
Why do I always go the aisle?
Yeah.
So when I need to get up and go to the toilet or something, I can just walk straight out rather than have to walk straight through people.
So when you're falling asleep at middle of the night and the cart's coming past and it just brushes you all the time, or someone's walking past and they brush you, you're not caring about that?
No, I do actually come to think of it, but yeah, I don't know. I just cop it, mate.
You're
I cop
rattled.
the elbow because I'm sitting at the back.
You're
I'm
rattled.
I'm rattled that they think I'm flying business when, mate, that is what your middle name is. Wait till you listen to the podcast. Wait till they listen to the guest part, and I can't wait to hear because they mentioned Charles Leclerc and driving Ferraris and being worth $20 million in 10 years. No word of a lie, that's going to be you. That will 100% be you.
Oh, Brado, what do you reckon of this, mate? It's pretty funny. I'm actually wrapped at that.
You do have him rattled. I'm sensing it. He's I've never seen him so shaken. I was
you tell me, Brado, who's going to be flying the business, me or Josh?
Yeah, no, I can see them wherever they tell you that you need to go. Ads, you're there. If they're like, we need someone, we're actually full. We don't have enough planes. We just need you to sit on the floor. Yeah, okay, I'll just sit on the floor.
Happy to. Give me my Nintendo DS, Nintendo Switch, and I will.
Yeah, I thought you were there. I thought you were gonna. You missed out on asking Howie what his TV show recommendation is.
Oh, I did. What's yours, Brado?
I have a couple because you watched Breaking Bad. You got to watch Better Call Saul. You would have seen that. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I've been told, but I was so invested in Breaking Bad, I didn't want it to ruin it for me.
Yeah,
so what's the suggestion? Is it?
I think it's slightly better, just because it's a bit newer. I think The Sopranos is aging poorly. I didn't find that very entertaining. The Blue Heelers, you remember Blue Heelers from back in the day?
Do I remember the live episode Blue Heelers they did?
It's pretty good. One of my mates was on Blue Heelers as a kid, and we started an IMDb profile for him and his acting career. And the Last of Us, because you're a video game aficionado.
I've seen it, Brado. Great show.
That's a pretty good one. And then one that I want to try is Succession, because I haven't tried Succession yet.
Yes.
But I've heard great things. So I reckon it's almost worth in the comments to motivate ads to watch more TV shows. Every week people should put spoilers from a really good, long-lasting TV show in the comments to ruin shows for you, so you're running out of options and you need to speed up. And you need to
Please do. Do it. Please do.
Spoil all the see, we could easily jump in and spoil Game of Thrones for you. Like, we could just tell you the end. But we won't.
No, don't. Let me be disappointed like everyone, like all the millions of people were.
No spoilers yet, but they're coming. Wrap it up. We're 4 hours in. This is Titanic.
Yeah.
The podcast.
Wrap it up, Josh.
True. All right. Well, I hope you're not too rattled, mate. But thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you liked our first guest on the podcast. And yeah, we look forward to doing that a few more times this year. And if you have any recommendations, send them through. So thanks, Adzi. Good one again, mate. We'll chat to you next week.
Yep. Go well, mate. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Brooks Blooms, your all-in-one landscaping solution.
Brooks Blooms' 3-step landscaping experience offers a seamless journey from design to construction and ongoing care, ensuring your outdoor space thrives year-round.
Visit brooksblooms.com today to embark on your landscaping journey, where every step is a step towards a vibrant and beautiful outdoor entertaining space.